This is our third live and in-person inspiration session for 2025, specially created for Elevate by Matt Bolton-Alarcón of Special Source Training, ensuring that our community receives the most valuable and impactful tools, resources, and inspiration. In this talk, you'll learn how to move beyond slide decks and connect through emotion, clarity, and creative storytelling. Whether you're presenting ideas, selling a vision, or just trying to stand out, this session will help you pitch in a way that truly lands. The presentation referred to in this session can be downloaded from the show notes. This podcast was recorded at Protein Studios in Shoreditch with a live audience.
I've got one. Look at that. Look at that. It's just for the podcast, not for me, I know, but thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Hello. Those people in Cannes, there they are drinking their rosé, thinking they're cool. This is cooler, isn't it? This is it. It's cool. I mean, some people are out there on the streets, Shoreditch, in pubs. You're here dedicated to learning. And I was thinking, is it going to be a full house? It is. That is incredible. So brilliant that we've got everyone assembled tonight. Now, you will know that when we kick off these sessions, there's a bit of a tradition that rather than me just talk about how to be more engaging when you pitch, I'm going to get you doing something immediately, okay? Now, the only watch out is this room has got some serious reverb, okay? So I'm going to get you through a very quick exercise now, but just notice when I'm flailing on stage, can you stop? Right, if that's okay? So that's what I'll be doing up front. Lots of micro moments of interactivity today, and this is the first one. So here is your challenge, everyone. Here is your challenge. I normally get a little ooh in anticipation. Oh, exactly right. So Mel did ask who pitches. Quite a lot of hands went up. I believe everyone pitches, because you might not just be in front of a client trying to win a pitch and try and get a project through the door, whatever it may be. You might be just presenting in a team meeting a new bit of technology that you want people to engage in, or you might be talking to another team about what your team does, or you might be going to an interview, trying to get a new role and land a new project somewhere else. That's all pitching. We pitch many, many times a day. So whatever I cover today, I think this is going to be just applied to when we present, when we try and engage other individuals. All good? Right, but my first challenge is to put you on the spot a little bit. It's this. Can you pitch it? Can you pitch it? I want you to have a look in your bag, or just think of, if you haven't got a bag, don't worry. I've got 2 prompts up on screen here. I want you to think of a pretty mundane item, and I want you to turn and face your neighbour. And as always, if you're looking at the back of someone's head, it's the other neighbour. It's okay as a 3 as well. And I want you to take that mundane object, the more mundane the better. I've gone for the Sharpie pen here, or the Post-it note, and I want you to pitch it to your buddies. Right? Try and pitch it to your buddies. And you've only got 30 seconds, so grab a mundane object, pitch it to your buddy, away you go. I love that. I love that. Okay, everyone, okay. I love that. I love looking around. I saw some people using items and pitching it that it had many uses. I saw a water bottle being used as a weapon. I've seen people pitching their bank card. They love their bank so much. Whoever it was in their group signed up to the bank live so it was working. I was looking at the humble Post-it note, and many of you know I train creative thinking, and you think, oh, Matt, he must love the Post-it note for when you run brainstorms. I do, but I really love the Post-it note through the way that allows me to connect with my children. So when I'm away with work and I'm leaving them their lunchbox for school, a little hidden Post-it note goes somewhere in that, on the back of the snack or under the sandwich, with a little message from me saying I'm looking forward to seeing them at the end of the day or the week sometimes. So it's not just connection and reconnection with resealable glue. It allows me to do that. Right, bit of fun. And actually what was really lovely was a lot of smiling facing, much hilarity, a very loud, as always, Elevate group. What we're going to do now, though, is we're going to get 5 of you up, and you are going to do your pitch to the rest of the group. And the rest of the group, we're going to use a conference app. We're going to do Dragon's Den styly voting for what's the best pitch? Right, so just a bit of a poll before we do the randomised who is it. Who's really up for it? Who's excited to join me up here on stage? Who's there going, you could have told me this earlier, I would have had 4 more of those, then I'd be up for it? Who's there going, don't let this be me? Please don't let this be me. Be honest, where are you? Right, okay, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all. There's none of that in this workshop putting you on the spot. But is it fair to say a bit of adrenaline crept in? Yeah, a little bit of adrenaline. Although a couple of people were going, damn, I was so excited to pitch my shoelace once again. So, and just to recognise, that's the same the world over, whether you're doing a big pitch for a big commercial gain for your company, right through to just pitching in a team meeting for more headspace on a project, there's a bit of nerves involved, okay? And studies show this, and lots of studies out there show this, and one of them led to one of my favourite jokes from one of my favourite comedy writers and comedians, Jerry Seinfeld. So Jerry Seinfeld tells a great joke, which is, according to most studies, people's number 1 fear in the world is public speaking. Number 2 is death. This means, to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you'd rather be the one in the casket than the one doing the eulogy. Casket translation is a coffin. Okay, so now, I don't think it's that extreme, but there was a lot of nerves involved around pitching. So, and by the way, I was nervous today. I had a speech this morning, first thing, and I deliberately got there early, and I walked. It was with a new group that I'm working with an audience I didn't really know that well. And I was processing it. I was walking past Hyde Park, got a bit lost as well. That was a bit nerve-wracking, and I got a bit nervous about it, but then I get myself in the zone. But I have been doing this job for 18 years. So as Mel said, I've been working around the world. My first big speech was about 17 years ago. I've been doing this job for about a year. And my agency I used to work for said, Matt, we want you to be one of our keynote speakers. We're a global agency specializing in innovation. We'd love you to go out and do a talk. It's quite high stakes because before lunch, the speaker before you is Sir Bob Geldof. And then after lunch, it's you, Matt Bolton. Because I wasn't married back then, so it was just a humble Matt Bolton. Everyone was quite nervous. In fact, the person introduced me on stage said, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Bolton introduced me on stage. And I always joke that I walked up on stage and everyone looked at me going, that's not Michael Bolton. By the way, if you don't know who Michael Bolton is, famous, slightly dodgy soul singer from the 1980s. Anyway, I walked up and I looked round and a few people were disappointed it wasn't the real Michael Bolton. But most of the audience were quite relieved, I thought, in the end. But anyway, so the stakes were high. And I was super nervous. But what I would say is, it was the hard yards before the event that meant that I was in a decent state when I was up on stage. Sir Bob Geldof was still the best speaker. I kid you not, he was amazing. But I held my own on that stage with all those people. And I've been doing it ever since. So what I'm going to do here today is hopefully improve your level of confidence, whether you're super confident around this stuff or you're just starting out, you've not done loads of pitches, loads of presentations, and you want to learn and you want to develop in that space. If I asked you to grade yourself from like super confident, I pitch all the time, I love it. In fact, I would only pitch every day of the week if that was a job. Right down to, not sure, I'm not that keen on it, or I've not done much of it. Where would you be on the level of confidence right now? Just show me. Bit of interactive moment. Okay, so we got a real spread from, I like that, absolutely there, right through to a bit of wavering going on. The goal by the end of this session is even if you're fairly confident, super confident, you've got a few more things you can play around with. And the approach is going to be, actually, what goes into the prep of building your talk? I believe that actually a bit of structure allows you to then relax and be in the moment. Dare I say it? A bit of structure is the friend of flair. Ooh. Bit louder for the podcast. Ooh, exactly. Right, so let me talk about that structure. What's the planning process to build a great talk? Right. Is it fair to say, I was just having a conversation outside on the bench outside with Sarah talking about pitching and how pitching everyone gets very excited. And any presentation, but let's take a pitch. Is it fair to say that from the moment that you find out we're going to be doing a pitch and you're involved, you're going to be up there presenting, to the day when you're up in front of people internally, people externally, doing that presentation, that pitch, is it fair to say that most people's process looks a little bit like this? Okay. Now we laugh, but it's often chaotic. Too many stakeholders involved, chopping and changing, not enough space for iteration, people building slides and perfecting them before you're going, I don't even know if that's going to go in the deck or not. Okay. It's chaotic, and I just think there's a few bits of discipline you can put in place that can really help you. So the first thing I'll say is let's have a confessional. I often see as a few bad habits. I've done them all. I still do, by the way. Have to check myself. Some bad habits we get into. So if any of these you've done in the past, just do a bit of a confessional. Raise your hand and say, yes, I've done this. Okay. Right, so here are some of the bad habits. Who in the room, when they are asked to present or pitch, the first thing you do is go, what have I done before on this? What can I copy and paste from other places? Right, great. Look at that, double hands. Feels efficient, but the danger of that is you're literally going copy and paste thinking from something that might not be relevant. Who goes straight into building slides, right? I'm going to be presenting on PowerPoint. Let's get the deck out. Let's start perfecting those slides. Feels efficient. You might never have to use that slide, so why spend hours perfecting it, okay? Who starts writing a detailed script straight away? Well, let's start with the intro. Yeah, that's a good structure. That's a danger as well. And then who is a bit of a wing it, leaving it to the night before? Thank you for a bit too many hands in the group there. For those listening on the podcast, that was about a quarter of the Elevate audience. Let's try and fix that. And there's actually just on that, the people that run the organization TED, who are obviously experts on doing really engaging, mainly 20-minute talks. They say there's two ends of a spectrum with TED presenters when they come to TEDx, etc. One end of the spectrum is winging it. You literally turn up and you can tell that they've got a bit of a structure, but they're just winging it in the moment. Other people, they come in and they are happy birthday ready. What that means is they're as ready as if someone's in a restaurant and go, that table, we've got a birthday. Everyone's pretty good to sing happy birthday. You don't go, wait a sec, let me just check. Okay. Now, I don't think ever that we're in a state where we're fully happy birthday ready, but we need to move some way to there when it comes to how we prep. So let's get into how might we do that. So please don't do any of these bad habits before. The big one for me is where you just literally grab a previous PowerPoint, start building it from there. That is messy. That is super messy. So this is the approach I use in building a talk, and I've been doing it regular. And I've got actually a bit of a way of doing it which allows me to actually enjoy the process as well. It's not a painful experience. I call it the 3 C's, but the big principle is do some quality thinking before you get to the format of how you're going to be presenting. Think before format. Okay, you're all smart people, I can tell. Got really good spidey senses. Most of you are really smart. No, you all are, I can tell. And so use your brains. You're knowledge workers. Let's use our brains rather than just get busy. So the first step that I use when I'm building a talk, a presentation of any kind, is get creative, actually. And get creative without being anywhere near the format that you'll be presenting on. So for me, that would be very much like if I was a detective, I would create an incident room with all the clues, all the things that could go into my talk. Very happy with Scrappy, just stuff I can screw up, move around, piece together. So for me, I've got a bit of a garden office at the end of the garden, nicknamed Papa's Wendy House, that I go into. And my wall has got stuff that I can move around when I'm building a talk, okay? And the point is that it's visual. The point is it's iterative and you're not wedded to anything, okay? The next step is then collide. Who's got a friend that when you go for a drink after work or in a coffee during the day, they're a bit annoying because they've always got a different point of view. They're always challenging you or provoking you, yeah. I've got a good friend of mine, Richard. Richard is great fun. We go on holiday together. We talk about work together. He's quite annoying because he always comes with a different point of view. but he is the best person for me to take any of my talks to, my workshop content to, because he provokes it. He's also in a very different world. He runs an e-commerce business. So he challenges me as to what's relevant to small businesses right now. But having created what could go into your presentation, your pitch, collide it with someone that's not in the weeds of what you do. Not someone in the office, someone away from that context. Adam Grant, who wrote the amazing book, Think Again, he says everyone needs a challenge network. Great minds don't think alike. Collide with people that are wired differently to you. Little test with someone else. And then if you do steps 1 and 2 really well, crafting is then super easy. Yeah, crafting what goes into the deck or how you're going to present the script is super easy. So there's a quick discipline. Create, collide, and then craft. Okay, try the first 2 C's and see how your life gets a lot easier. So let's get then into the crafting. So another confessional. Who in the room is a fan of the musical The Sound of Music? That is not enough hands. That is hideous. That is really, but you need to go, those who not, go and watch it again this weekend. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So, and I say it's amazing because as a child I was in it twice. I was the youngest son and then I was the oldest son because I never made the Nazi. I wanted to be the Nazi, but I didn't get the kiss with Liesl. Nightmare. But anyway, there's a famous line in that. What's the most famous line from that musical when Maria's teaching the 7 Von Trapps how to sing? Do, re, mi, yeah, but she starts with a line which is, thank you very much. Why is it good to start at the beginning? Because it's a very good place to start, right? Now, I'm a massive fan of The Sound of Music. I absolutely love it. I've been to see it in the West End as well. But I hate to say it, Maria, I completely disagree with you. I disagree with you. I don't think that's a good place to start. When you're building your talk, dare I say it, you've got to start at the very end. Any pitch, any presentation, start at the very end. And it's asking yourself, where do I want to get the audience to by the end of my time? Okay? And if you start there, you can then build a much more focused, purposeful talk or pitch. Okay? So this is what I call an audience shift. Where are they coming in to your talk, your pitch? How are they coming in mentally or emotionally? And where do you think you can take them in the time that you've got? So if you think about pitching, think about what moment of the day are you pitching? Are you number 5 of 5 and they've been sat in the same room all day hearing maybe similar ideas from agencies that promise very similar things? Because actually, that's some context to bear in mind. Have you done a previous project with them that was a little bit safe, a bit dull, and you want to shift them to make them think that you're a bit more of an adventurous agency to work with? Is it that they've pigeonholed you as they're really good at production, but they're not that strategic and creative? And you might then want to make the shift and making them think you're a bit more like that. Okay? So what I'd love you to do is, again, turn and face a buddy. Very quick bit of interactivity. Not all of you have pitches going live right now and presentations right now, but for those that have, just turn and face a buddy or two, you might 2s and 3s, and just go, the next big high-stakes presentation or pitch you've got coming up, how's the audience, what's going on for them, and realistically, where do you think you can get them in the time you've got? Have that quick conversation now. What's the shift that you want to make? Away you go. So I just think it's a great discipline. It can then help you really figure out what are your stories you're going to be telling, what are your talking points, all those things. It's a good self-discipline, and all too often people don't ask that question. I was doing a pitch a few weeks ago, and it was with a board of an insurance company, and they were a little bit warm to the subject of creative thinking. I was pitching a creative thinking program, but I knew that they were walking into it thinking creative thinking's just fun. It's not really business critical at all to us. It'd be a bit of fun. In fact, the leader walked in and went, looking forward to this. Sounds like a bit of fun. Like, oh, great. Just, edutainment, let's go. But And hopefully by the end of the session, I was landing, this is important for the future of work. Creativity is in the top 3 skills demanded in the future of work. That's what I hope to do. And actually, hopefully by the end of the session, they'll be thinking, I need to get my teams to be thinking about that. And it worked. Now, I've not made them evangelists of creative thinking. They're not signed up to my newsletter and are going to take part in every program I run, but they are supportive of me doing more work with their organization. Okay. There we go. So first thing is go to the end. Now let's get into crafting now. And what I would say is I'm about to put something up on screen that for some of you, if you've been on any communications course in the past, you will have heard this bit of theory. It sounds quite basic. What I would say is the so what is absolutely potent, though. So if you go with me in that spirit, that would be lovely. Right. I'm going to talk about the communication styles, the levers that we can pull when we're engaging a group of people. 3 distinctly different communication styles we can use. One is auditory. That's words and numbers, spoken or written. So me describing it to you now is auditory. Equally, a spreadsheet is auditory. A load of data points is auditory, etc. So we can use that as a lever. The second one is visual. So that's obviously using charts like this, infographics. It's why we found use for a Venn diagram. Venn made a lot of money out of that, by the way. Every time you use it, they get a little royalty. Pie charts, etc. Infographics. Obviously, there's brilliant AI now that can help us lift words off a page and make them more visually engaging. Now, the third style that we can use is kinesthetic. So this is all about experience. So the classic for me is, I got a new barbecue on the weekend. I had to assemble it. It had a lot of description about putting it together. Okay, my eyes glazed over. I looked at the diagrams. I didn't even know which way up they were to start with. I was doing all this. But I started to make sense of it somewhat. The only thing that landed it for me was some kind YouTube creator had gone, have you just got this barbecue? Let me show you how to unbox it and put it together. And I was like, I felt a lot more confident to do it. Also, when my neighbor came around and helped, that really helped as well. There we go. But anyway, whether you are a teacher, a pitcher, a trainer, you need to recognize that we all have a bit of a preference. In any audience, you'll have a bit of a preference to one of these particular styles. So a little hand raise in the room. How many of you as a group are a bit more auditory in the way you like to process and receive information? So you're good at remembering data points, quotes, stats, whatever it may be. Who's a bit more auditory? Right, okay? So for the podcast, that's about, let's say, 15, 20% of the room. Who's a bit more visual? Give me a diagram. Oh, my word. Visual group, okay, visual. So where you might need, you do a bit of mind mapping to make sense of stuff. I'm very visual. To pass my A-levels, I had to write an entire 2 years of learning of European history on one big sheet of paper, really neat writing, and just look at it. Yeah, couldn't read it, had to just visualize it like that. Who in the room's a bit more kinesthetic, need to experience it in order to really get something? Fantastic. Now, the world's population is split a third across those 3 different styles. Some people are equally split across all 3, that's fine. Okay? However, the world of work, the world of communication, the world of pitching, presenting, does not look after everybody. What do you think is the one that's massively over-biased in the world of work and how we communicate? Auditory, I believe. We've got so much data, so many things to share. We use auditory way too much. Okay, things have got more complex, so we use auditory way too much. I think on a good day we use good visuals. Definitely in a good pitch, there's good visuals. But often, I mean, PowerPoint is one of the best inventions in the world of work, or whatever slides you use. When I used to work at EMAP 20 years ago, as a young marketer and creative, I was known as the PowerPoint kid. I could make anything look whizzy. I was the first person to realize you could do an animation coming in from bottom right, whiz round, land in the middle, and put a hat on top. Amazing. But over the years, we've just abused that as a medium. It's become an auditory medium. Too many words on the slide. It's the leave behind, the PDF for after the meeting. So let's just flood it with loads of shit that isn't useful for the presentation. Fair to say? Yeah, too many uncomfortable bits of laughter there. The tiniest, the ones that are not used enough is kinesthetic. okay? But as we saw in this room, a third of your audience at least will be more kinesthetic, need to experience something, okay? So the advice is, when you're building your pitch, balance them up. Use a bit of all three. Just know that your preference isn't necessarily that of the audience that you're pitching to. I always like to quote a founding father of the United States of America on a Tuesday evening in Shoreditch. As Benjamin Franklin once said, "Tell me and I forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I learn." Yeah, but it's the combination of all three that makes a more engaging pitch. Okay, quick story around that, around the power of kinesthetic. This was actually not about pitching. It kind of was. It was the other way around. It was when an agency was being pitched to by an organization. So I used to work for an innovation company. We used to do all kinds of projects all around the world. And one of the teams in our agency went to receive a brief from the Coca-Cola company. And normally it would be going to their fancy head offices, and you go into their offices and you looked after there. In this particular instance, the brand director said, "Can you meet us on a Tuesday afternoon in Hammersmith in a shopping centre?" Well, all right, so it was about 2:30 the team had to meet. And he said, "Great, I'm glad you're here. Just go and sit on that bench over there." So the team went and assembled on a bench. Said, "Just wait and see what you see." Anyway, at about 3 o'clock, teenagers from the local school came in. So in their uniform, bit bedraggled looking from a day at school, and the bags on the shoulder, jostling with each other, whacking each other with the bags. And after about 15 minutes, it's like a flash mob of adrenaline and unnecessary noise, okay? And after about 15 minutes, they all dispersed and went back home, okay? And the brand director, Fanta, came out and said, "That is the moment that we want to own in a teenager's life, okay? It's the moment of freedom. It's a tiny little morsel of freedom that exists between when teachers are in charge at school saying, straighten your tie, sit straight, listen, stop looking out the window. And when you get home and your parents are going, tidy your room, it's a disgrace, and have you got any homework? There's a tiny moment of freedom in between. And that's what we want to own with this project. Now, they didn't then just go, off you go. There was a very thorough briefing document. There was obviously some charts about the soft drinks market. But that was the thing that fought for the headspace of the team working on that project. Okay. So there we go. So the power of a little bit of kinesthetic goes a long way is going to be my argument tonight. Okay. The next thing that makes things more engaging and actually involves, to me, auditory, visual, and kinesthetic is the power of stories. Okay. Now, I argue that stories are all three because, yes, it's the spoken word, but when someone tells a great story, it puts pictures in your head. And if you do a really good story, it transports people into someone else's experience. Okay, and actually, so much so that going back to TED, the TED approach to... Is anyone here done a TED talk, by the way? I know Max has done one. So TED, when you go and do a TED talk, no matter how experienced you are, you have to go, even if you're Simon Sinek, you have to go on a 1-hour coaching session of how to deliver a great TED talk. And you are taught the TED commandments, 10 commandments about what goes into a great talk, right? And the number one of the TED commandments is, thou shalt tell stories, okay? There's a power of storytelling. There's a famous psychologist called Jerome Bruner who says you're actually 22 times more likely to remember a story than just a fact. So very powerful things. And to me, a story is you present facts that engage the listener's imagination. You get them transported to another world. Who tells lots of stories in their presentations? Yeah? So not many people, not enough people. My argument is to be using way more. The only problem is we often use case studies, things we did really well, yeah, but I think there's so many more stories you can tell, so I'll give you some tips on that. Last time I looked on Amazon for books on storytelling in business, there were 80,000 results of different books on how to do this, so this isn't the only way. But what I'm going to quickly do is just tell you my favorite story. Some of you that have been on other creativity workshops with me, you may have heard this story. That's cool. Because what I want your active listening brief to be for the next minute of your life is to think to yourself, what are the ingredients of this story? What are the component parts of this story? And I'm going to then give you a storytelling structure. All good? Are we ready? So, I want to transport you now, not to midsummer. I want you to go to deepest, darkest November. It's got to the end of November. You've passed bonfire now and all those things. And there's a consumer event that happens towards the end of November. And it's called what? Black Friday. Okay, so now it obviously originated in the United States. And it is the day after Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving with family and friends, you get the holiday the day after. And you end up going to shopping malls, and buying stuff you don't need online. Businesses reduce all their margins, a big day of sales, you need to do it to drive commercial gain that part of the year. How do consumers behave? Show me how you've behaved on Black Friday, show me, be honest. Yeah, buying shit you don't, doing that, need that, all that. Anyone fought for a bag in a shop? I once saw that at Bicester Village, it was quite a thing, I just enjoyed it for a little while over this one. People have been seen fighting over massive TVs at massive reductions, a genuine photograph happening in a US store, okay. So, a bit extreme, but it's happened. Now, the company in question that felt uncomfortable about this was REI. They are an outdoor clothing and equipment specialist. They're like the B&Q of outdoor apparel. So if you want to do hiking stuff, climbing stuff, skiing stuff, they've got the kit, and everyone that works there loves the outdoors. Okay, now their purpose statement is to get people to make the most of the great outdoors. Felt a bit wrong the day after Thanksgiving, family and friend time, to be sending people into consumer madness. So they decided to do something, which was to close on Black Friday. We are going to close all our stores and all our website, e-commerce, on that day. All the staff spend time with family and friends. But they then realized if they shut down on that day, all the consumers, the shoppers, would just go elsewhere. The zombies would just head somewhere else to buy their televisions and whatever they thought they needed. Okay. So they pushed that idea even further and said, we are going to start a movement. They started a movement a number of years ago, and it's still going. It's called Opt Outside movement. And they got, in year one, 1.4 million Americans to sign up to opt outside and not get involved in Black Friday. Okay, it's quite a lot in year one. They also had 1.2 billion social impressions of people posting, we're doing tree planting in a local park, or we're going on a hike with our friends. So it was the best bit of marketing activity in the year. And then here's their founder, Jerry Stritzka, who's pretty happy because not only are they living and breathing their purpose statement, but year on year, they were actually up 9% in sales. So actually the whole rule and convention that you have to do Black Friday to drive sales is a nonsense in their eyes now. Okay? That is my story of Black Friday. Slightly longer than 1 minute, but there you go. Now you tell me, what went into that story? What were the component parts? Anyone brave enough to go, I think there was this element. I'll give you a clue. There are 3 parts of that story. What's going on? Say again? Doing the opposite. That is actually the, yes, at the end, that when everyone else was zigging, they were zagging. That's the thrust of the story. Yeah, I love that. Setting the scene. There's definitely setting the scene, the context, the situation at the beginning. What then is there? There's conflict. There's a bit of jeopardy. There's a struggle. It's the way all businesses and consumers are behaving. And then what is there at the end? Yeah, there's a resolution, exactly. And the resolution was, let's do the opposite of everyone else, and let's actually create a movement that's the opposite of everyone else. Let's really push that idea. Now, there are so many different approaches to storytelling. There's the hero's journey approach, lots of different methods. But when I'm building a story, it doesn't have to be in this order, but I often find if I've got that as a structure to fall back on, I can tell lots of different stories. Okay. Now, my push, though, is don't get trapped in just telling case studies. Another great story to tell is a story of where it didn't go to plan, the anti-hero story. You know, the story, if you don't do this, this is what might happen to you as an organization. There's the personal anecdote. I was at an event last week. I spoke at a MailChimp event last week, and I learned this about the world of events, whatever it might be. You can use personal stories. You can use stories from friends. You can tell stories that are a bit of a metaphor to bring to life your point and cut through complexity. I think there's so much opportunity to tell stories in such a short space of time. So, thou shalt tell stories is my advice to you. And there's a bit of a structure. Right. And then a couple more quick things just to end on here. I want you to think about your first few moments of a presentation. And I'm going to put an image, it's me up on stage, and I want you to think about how most people build and craft the start of their presentation. It could be at a conference, it could be at a pitch. What is their opening line? Anyone brave enough to go, this is the opening line for most people? Put words in my mouth. What do I say? Yeah, so give me the actual words. Yeah, so hello. I'm Matt. I'm a speaker on creative thinking. I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about this. Okay. Even worse is when people start. Sorry, Mel did a bit of this. Started with logistics. Start. You didn't actually. You did something else at the beginning. It was brilliant. But when people start with logistics, hello everyone. Right. We've got an hour and a half. The first bit is this, and then coffees are then. Not again. Now, when you do that, what happens is people's filters go up. Yeah, their filters go up. They stop listening. They think about other things because they've seen that before, okay? So the opportunity not to do that, because here's another stat from TED. People make a decision on how engaging you are in the first 7 seconds of you being up in front of the room. 7 seconds is all you've got, right? Now, they may change that opinion, but in studies in TEDatoriums, what happens is people make a decision really early on, a bit like on The Voice or whatever, all those shows, and very rarely do they change their opinion. They stick with their original opinion in most cases. So the big provocation then is start hot. Yeah, exactly as Mel did today, reference to Cannes and all those things and making a joke about that, got you in the room, everyone energized. The best movies start hot, the best novels start hot, the best songs bring you in at the beginning with something engaging. So here are some quick tips on how to start hot. One is you could start with a quote. Yeah, so Steve Jobs used to say, creativity's no big deal. It's just about connecting things you've not connected before. That's when I use at the start of a talk of creativity. You might use picture the scene. Yeah, imagine a year from now, whatever it might be. Could be a key question. Yeah, in the room. Who's nervous about pitching or who gets excited about it? Just get people thinking about your topic. It might be a joke. Now, I think jokes are better in the moment, riff off something that's happened before, something's topical. I don't encourage you all to be going on a comedy writing course and then walking up and then crafting 1 minute of comedy as your opening, because that might backfire, is my advice. So use humor wisely, often riffing to me off stuff that's happened in the room. Use a powerful statistic, yeah? 1 in 4 people don't believe they've got the permission to be creative in their day job, is one that I use. It's quite profound. You've got leaders going, really? Am I creating that? A big statement you might use about the situation, something topical, whatever it may be. So if you do one of those, choose one that's right for you, cherry pick from that menu, you're more likely to get people's attention. And then when you get people's attention at the beginning, what then happens? What happens to them? Say again? They lean in. They relax. They go, I'm in safe hands here. They've thought about this. When they relax, you relax, and then you can get into flow. You can do introductions then. You can go, by the way, this is my company. You can then do the logistics. We've got an hour, but there's going to be a bit of Q&A at the end. But please don't start there. Start hot, and you're going to grab that audience's attention. So, a few tips there that I'm going to share at the end, which is, what is that audience shift? Where do they come into your talk? Where do you want to take them? Second one is, the biggest takeaway for me is, be more kinesthetic. It's the least used in the world of work, but actually if we use a bit of it, you will stand out way more than anyone else. And kinesthetic doesn't have to be wild and radical. It can just be getting people to use the tech rather than talking about it, or whatever it may be, just some form of user experience. And then start hot. You've only got 7 seconds, so make the most of that time to grab people's attention. Okay. So, a quick story, and then a final thought from me, if that's all right. Indulge me before you have your free drink. You've got to drink as much as you can. Was it pre-9:30? What a goal. That is fantastic. Right. So this is my favourite story of the most amazing pitch that grabbed attention in the first few moments. It was highly kinesthetic, and it dates back to 1977. That's why I love it. So I'm 3 years old at this point, so I'm not in the world of advertising, but this is happening in London. And it is, for one of the biggest accounts in the world of advertising, British Rail. Back when the rail wasn't privatised, before privatisation. British Rail, one of the biggest advertising accounts. And the tender process only came round once every 2 decades for this. So this was a big deal, multi-millions pound contract, full service agency. So they were going around all of the big agencies in town. They were getting the red carpet treatment. And I think this was like the 5th pitch they walked into. And they arrived on some Tuesday morning. It was about 10 o'clock. And they walked in. And they were greeted, or not greeted, by the receptionist who was on the phone. And she said, she was like that, sit down. And she carried on chatting. She was having a conversation about what a great night she'd had the night before, who she'd met, who she's agreed to meet on the weekend, and she was just chatting to her friend. One of the general counsel of British Rail came up to the desk and said, we're from British Rail, do they know we're here? And she said, okay, yeah, I'll ring up and let them know you're here. She rang up and said, British Steel are here. Got the name wrong, and they went, okay, all right. And she went, they'll be with you in 5 minutes. And they went, okay, so went back down. In the table, they were offered no fresh coffees or anything. There were actually coffees and cigarette butts left from the night before, okay? So they carried on for about another 10 minutes, and the board agreed, this is ridiculous. So they got up, and they stomped up to the desk, one of them on behalf, and said, it seems that you aren't the right agency for us. So if you could let them know that we are leaving, we don't want to see the pitch, you're not the right agency for us. And she was like, okay. And they were just walking out, and the head of strategy and the head of creative walked to the top of the stairs. It was an agency called ABM, which was Alan Brady Marsh. And actually, Marsh created this experience, the creative director. And they came to the top of the stairs and said, stop, don't leave the building, please. We just wanted to make you feel how you make your customers feel every single day of the week. So if you'd like to come up to the boardroom, we're going to pitch to you about how you can overcome that and solve that problem. Now, that's very mic droppy, isn't it? Right? And in the case study in the book on this, there's great stories of advertising. The client quote was, they didn't win the pitch at that moment. They had to go through rounds and rounds of procurement and have all the right data and the right ideas. But we were leaning in and we wanted them to win, right? So kinesthetic goes a long way. And you might want to think maybe not going that extreme tomorrow on that pitch you've got. Yeah. Think about the riskometer. Think about the riskometer. How far do you want to go on it? Right, from sleeping with your socks on to bring a large cat into a bed. But what I will say is, a bit of risk goes a long way. People will appreciate you making an effort, even if it falls a bit flat. If you've thought about doing something, it will often stand out from the rest of the pack. Thank you to Elevate and having us all here this evening. Give yourself a massive round of applause, everyone.
This project is powered by our partners Cvent, Jack Morton, Live Union, Powwow, PSP, the production department, We Are Collider, and CastleBell. Our training partner is Matt Bolton-Alarcón from Special Source Training. Our people and culture partners are Zoe Tuffs from Times 10 Coaching and people and culture strategy consultant Nic Neal. Our venue partner is Protein Studios. Together we're changing lives, careers, and the events industry for the better. Our sound and mix engineer is Matteo Margarelio, and our producer is me, Peter Kerwood.